Imagine yourself stepping quietly into a dream where the world slows down, where the rush of the day fades into the distance like the last glow of the sun vanishing behind distant hills, and where your heart begins to beat in rhythm with the calm of ancient stones. Tonight I want to take you on a journey into castles, but not as they appear in history books filled with battles and sieges, nor as settings of clashing swords and echoing horns. Instead, I want to reveal their softer side, the side that often lingers unnoticed, the side that feels like a lullaby wrapped in stone, wood, and quiet memory. These are the castles you enter not to defend a crown, but to find rest, not to feel fear, but to feel the comfort of spaces so enduring that they seem to hum with patience. Each tower, each hall, each hidden staircase has stories to tell, but they whisper them gently, like a breeze flowing under a heavy wooden door. Picture yourself standing before a castle gate at twilight. The great iron chains that once raised and lowered the drawbridge now rest silently, rust softened by moss and years of rain. The stone arch rises above you, tall and solemn, yet it does not intimidate. Instead, it cradles you in its shadow, offering shade from the worries you carried through your day. The sky deepens into velvet blue, stars slowly stitching themselves into the fabric above, while the walls glow faintly with the memory of daylight. You step closer, and with each breath you notice the air cooling, thick with the scent of damp earth and stone. It is as though the castle itself breathes, and in its breath you find reassurance that time moves slowly here, that no demand will be placed upon you, that you may wander without hurry. The soundscape is soft, the rustle of leaves against the walls, the occasional call of an owl somewhere beyond the courtyard, the faint trickle of water from a fountain long forgotten by armies, but remembered by the night. Your footsteps fall on gravel, and each sound is absorbed by the vastness of the walls, echoing just enough to remind you that you are not lost, but gently guided. You can almost feel the centuries pressing in, but instead of heaviness, there is a curious lightness. The weight of history is transformed here into comfort, like a blanket of countless stories wrapping around you, saying, "Rest, all is well, nothing more is required of you now." Perhaps you look upward and see the towers, their tips blending into the sky, silhouettes crowned with stars. Imagine how many eyes have looked out from those towers. Guards long gone, queens waiting for loved ones, children peering into the horizon. Yet now, in your presence, the towers simply gaze into the night for you, holding the silence, keeping watch, allowing you to close your own eyes more easily. They no longer need to sound alarms or light beacons. They serve a gentler purpose now, to remind you that others have stood watch, others have carried burdens, and you are free, at least for tonight, to release yours. Step inside the courtyard with me. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of passage. Each stone has carried the weight of countless travelers, yet tonight it carries only you, and it does so with grace. The walls rise on all sides, creating a cocoon of safety. Windows glow faintly with the suggestion of candlelight, though no one is rushing to greet you or demand your attention. The castle is alive, but not with noise. It is alive with a heartbeat that feels steady, ancient, and deeply calming. Even the air seems to slow your pulse, as though the coolness itself is whispering, "Stay, linger, you are safe here." And now, before we wander deeper into the endless corridors, the vaulted halls, and the secret chambers that await, I want to pause for a moment to ask something of you. If you are finding comfort in this gentle unfolding, if you sense that this journey through castles is beginning to soften the sharp edges of your thoughts and prepare you for sleep, then I warmly invite you to help keep this sanctuary alive. Like this video, leave a comment. Perhaps share with me what image of a castle most soothes your imagination, or even what part of this slow beginning made you breathe more deeply. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so that together we may continue to wander into these calming places, these refugees built not of stone alone, but of memory, story, and the quiet companionship of others seeking rest. Your support keeps this lantern burning. Your presence ensures that these journeys do not end, but flow forward, night after night, offering peace. So linger a little longer here at the threshold. Feel the coolness of the arch above, the softness of moss on stone, the quiet anticipation of the castle waiting. Beyond the gate lies a whole world of chambers, gardens, tapestries, and secrets, all patient, all silent, all ready to cradle you deeper into calm. And as you stand here with the night folding gently around you, you realize you are exactly where you need to be. Block 2, the gentle strength of walls and gates. As you move closer into the embrace of the castle, your attention begins to settle on the walls themselves, those towering guardians that have stood for centuries, absorbing storms, sunlight, footsteps, laughter, and silence. There is a calming rhythm in simply noticing them, in letting your eyes trace the lines of stone upon stone, each one carefully placed by hands long gone, hands that labored with patience, lifting, fitting, shaping, smoothing, not to create terror, but to create endurance. What remains now is not a warning of danger, but a hymn of stability, a reminder that even the roughest surfaces can become symbols of shelter. These walls no longer need to repel, they only need to hold the night with dignity. And in that holding, they extend their gift of calm to you. Step slowly along the base of the wall. The stones are cool beneath your fingertips, the surface uneven yet familiar, as if it carries the memory of countless people who once brushed past it. Imagine the gentle dampness of moss, soft against the hard edges of stone, an emerald layer that nature has tenderly laid across human effort, softening what was once meant to be formidable. You pause to breathe, and the scent is earthy, rich, like rain lingering after a storm, grounding you, making you feel that you are not separate from this structure but a guest welcomed into its slow rhythm. Above, the battlements stretch in a patient line, like teeth of an ancient crown against the evening sky. Long ago, guards may have stood there, but tonight, only the wind patrols the parapets. It moves with a soothing constancy, brushing against the stone, whispering in tones that echo across centuries. Rest. Nothing threatens here. Nothing presses upon you here. Even the smallest details of the wall feel alive in their stillness. The cracks that weave like rivers across the surface. The lichen spreading with quiet persistence. The way shadows soften as moonlight glides across the stones. These details are invitations to slow down, to let your mind find peace in the permanence of what endures. And then there is the gate. You approach it carefully, feeling its weight even before you touch it. Once it may have been lifted with effort, its chains clattering, its timbers straining, its iron bolts groaning with resistance. Now it stands closed, heavy but not forbidding, a silent guardian that watches rather than warns. Run your hand across the wood, and you feel the grooves where time has worn paths into its grain. The iron studs that once shimmered with firelight are cool now, their sheen softened by age. It is strange but comforting to imagine how many times this gate has opened and closed, for merchants, for travelers, for children chasing laughter, for nights returning weary. Tonight it opens only for your imagination, and it opens without struggle. As the gate swings inward in your mind, it does not creak with harshness but sighs with relief, as though it has been waiting for you to step through. waiting to show you the peace hidden behind its frame. Beyond the threshold lies not a scene of commotion, but one of tranquility. The walls that once enclosed fear now create a sanctuary. Inside, the night deepens, but it is not heavy. It is soft, filled with the gentle chorus of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the subtle dripping of water somewhere in the distance. Each sound is small, delicate, and yet it fills the vastness with a sense of belonging. Take a moment to walk along the length of the wall inside the courtyard. Notice how the torches, though few, cast a warm amber glow that dances slowly across the stones. Shadows rise and fall like waves, never harsh, always moving with a softness that soothes the eye. You feel safe beneath the wall's embrace, as though it has wrapped its arms around the courtyard to protect everything inside. The walls are not merely barriers, they are companions, patient in their silence, watchful in their stillness. You cannot help but feel that they are keeping time for you, holding the world steady while you rest. And yet what is most relaxing about these walls and gates is not their strength, but their patience. They have stood through centuries of change, yet they do not rush, do not complain, do not demand. They simply endure. They teach you that there is beauty in stillness, in letting go of urgency, in surrendering to the slow unfolding of time. In their presence, you too may allow yourself to slow, to set aside the burdens you carried through the day, and to find rest in the steady heartbeat of stone. So linger here a little longer. Let your hand rest on the gate's timber. Feel its grain, its story, its calm. Above you, the walls stretch into the sky, but rather than closing you in, they create a haven, a quiet circle where you may breathe more deeply. Let the walls remind you that strength does not need to shout. It can whisper, it can wait, it can cradle you until sleep itself carries you further inward, deeper into the castle, deeper into peace. Block 3. The soothing presence of towers and horizons. As you let the calm of the courtyard settle into your breath, your eyes are drawn upward, where the towers rise like ancient guardians, their silhouettes soft against the night sky. There is something inherently comforting in their quiet height, in the way they stretch toward the heavens yet remain rooted in stone, as if they are bridges between earth and sky, between your thoughts and your dreams. To look at a tower in the silence of evening is to feel the world expand and slow, to sense that horizons are closer than they appear, and that each layer of stone was laid not simply for defense, but for the slow and steady practice of endurance. Step closer to one of these towers. Its base is wide and grounded, the stone cool under your hand. But as your gaze moves upward, the structure narrows, becoming delicate, almost fragile against the sweep of stars. You begin to imagine what it feels like to climb inside. Your steps slow, measured, following a spiral staircase that curls gently upward. Each step echoes in the hollow space, but the echo is soft, cushioned by the thickness of walls, as if the tower itself were humming back to you, repeating your rhythm with patience. The stones beneath your hand are worn smooth from centuries of touch, and as you climb, you sense that countless others have made this journey before. Not all of them warriors or messengers, but dreamers, wanderers, seekers of silence. At the top, you reach a narrow opening, a window carved into the wall. You lean forward and the night rushes in, cool and pure, carrying with it the scent of fields and forests beyond. The horizon stretches endlessly, a dark expanse softened by starlight, and the stillness of the view is almost overwhelming in its calm. No armies march below, no danger stirs, only the quiet rolling of the land, valleys fading into hills, rivers glinting faintly in silver, and villages asleep in the distance. The towers, once meant to watch for threats, now serve as windows into peace, offering you a chance to see how vast the world is and how small your worries can become in its presence. Breathe in deeply. The air here feels different, sharper, freer, as if it has traveled far just to reach you. Perhaps a breeze brushes your cheek, gentle but insistent, reminding you that even the highest stone cannot resist the touch of the sky. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel as though you are floating, suspended between earth and stars, anchored only by the patient tower beneath your feet. In this space, there is no weight of expectation, no pull of urgency. There is only breath, horizon, and the eternal rhythm of night. The tower seems to hum with life of its own. Listen closely, and you may hear the faint creak of timbers hidden deep within, or the distant rustle of a flag, forgotten yet still waving softly in the breeze. These are not sounds of vigilance anymore, but lullabies, small reminders that even structures once tied to duty can be transformed into vessels of calm. The flag no longer signals alarm. It simply moves with the wind, tracing patterns that soothe the eye. The stairs no longer rush with hurried footsteps. They spiral gently upward, encouraging you to move at the pace of your own heart. From the top, you notice how the towers connect with one another, how their lines create a rhythm across the castle's silhouette, rising and falling like notes of music against the night. Each tower is part of a larger song, a harmony of stone and shadow that speaks not of battle, but of belonging. You realize that the castle itself is not a single structure, but a chorus, and the towers are its voices, rising into the sky to remind you that no matter how small you feel, there is always space above you to expand, to breathe, to dream. And so you linger here, letting the horizon soothe your eyes, letting the night air soften your shoulders, letting the presence of the tower cradle your thoughts into stillness. There is no need to descend yet, no need to rush back into the chambers below. The tower is a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a place where earth meets sky, where silence becomes song, and where you are free to simply rest, gazing out until your eyes grow heavy, until the stars blur into one, until the horizon itself becomes a pathway into sleep. Imagine yourself stepping quietly into a dream where the world slows down, where the rush of the day fades into the distance like the last glow of the sun vanishing behind distant hills, and where your heart begins to beat in rhythm with the calm of ancient stones. Tonight I want to take you on a journey into castles, but not as they appear in history books filled with battles and sieges, nor as settings of clashing swords and echoing horns. Instead, I want to reveal their softer side, the side that often lingers unnoticed, the side that feels like a lullaby wrapped in stone, wood, and quiet memory. These are the castles you enter not to defend a crown, but to find rest, not to feel fear, but to feel the comfort of spaces so enduring that they seem to hum with patience. Each tower, each hall, each hidden staircase has stories to tell, but they whisper them gently, like a breeze flowing under a heavy wooden door. Picture yourself standing before a castle gate at twilight. The great iron chains that once raised and lowered the drawbridge now rest silently, rust softened by moss and years of rain. The stone arch rises above you, tall and solemn, yet it does not intimidate. Instead, it cradles you in its shadow, offering shade from the worries you carried through your day. The sky deepens into velvet blue, stars slowly stitching themselves into the fabric above, while the walls glow faintly with the memory of daylight. You step closer, and with each breath you notice the air cooling, thick with the scent of damp earth and stone. It is as though the castle itself breathes, and in its breath you find reassurance that time moves slowly here, that no demand will be placed upon you, that you may wander without hurry. The soundscape is soft. The the rustle of leaves against the walls, the occasional call of an owl somewhere beyond the courtyard, the faint trickle of water from a fountain long forgotten by armies, but remembered by the night. Your footsteps fall on gravel, and each sound is absorbed by the vastness of the walls, echoing just enough to remind you that you are not lost, but gently guided. You can almost feel the centuries pressing in, but instead of heaviness, there is a curious lightness. The weight of history is transformed here into comfort, like a blanket of countless stories wrapping around you, saying, "Rest, all is well, nothing more is required of you now." Perhaps you look upward and see the towers, their tips blending into the sky, silhouettes crowned with stars. Imagine how many eyes have looked out from those towers. Guards long gone, queens waiting for loved ones, children peering into the horizon. Yet now, in your presence, the towers simply gaze into the night for you, holding the silence, keeping watch, allowing you to close your own eyes more easily. They no longer need to sound alarms or light beacons. They serve a gentler purpose now, to remind you that others have stood watch, others have carried burdens, and you are free, at least for tonight, to release yours. Step inside the courtyard with me. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of passage. Each stone has carried the weight of countless travelers, yet tonight it carries only you, and it does so with grace. The walls rise on all sides, creating a cocoon of safety. Windows glow faintly with the suggestion of candlelight, though no one is rushing to greet you or demand your attention. The castle is alive, but not with noise. It is alive with a heartbeat that feels steady, ancient, and deeply calming. Even the air seems to slow your pulse, as though the coolness itself is whispering, "Stay, linger, you are safe here." And now, before we wander deeper into the endless corridors, the vaulted halls, and the secret chambers that await, I want to pause for a moment to ask something of you. If you are finding comfort in this gentle unfolding, if you sense that this journey through castles is beginning to soften the sharp edges of your thoughts and prepare you for sleep, then I warmly invite you to help keep this sanctuary alive. Like this video, leave a comment. Perhaps share with me what image of a castle most soothes your imagination, or even what part of this slow beginning made you breathe more deeply. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel, so that together we may continue to wander into these calming places, these refugees built not of stone alone, but of memory, story, and the quiet companionship of others seeking rest. Your support keeps this lantern burning. Your presence ensures that these journeys do not end, but flow forward, night after night, offering peace. So linger a little longer here at the threshold. Feel the coolness of the arch above, the softness of moss on stone, the quiet anticipation of the castle waiting. Beyond the gate lies a whole world of chambers, gardens, tapestries, and secrets, all patient, all silent, all ready to cradle you deeper into calm. And as you stand here with the night folding gently around you, you realize you are exactly where you need to be. Block 5, the calm echoes of the great halls. From the still glow of stained glass, your steps lead you deeper into the castle, until you arrive at the heart of its presence, the Great Hall. Every castle has one, vast and open, a place designed to gather, to host, to shelter, to echo with voices long since gone. Yet tonight, in the hush of this wandering, the hall is not crowded, not filled with feasts or noise. It is empty, and in its emptiness, it offers a gift, the sound of stillness magnified, the kind of silence that does not feel lonely but expansive, welcoming like a wide plain under a sky of stars. The doors open slowly, and the chamber greets you with air that is cool and faintly scented with stone, wood, and the faintest trace of ash that lingers from fires long past. The ceiling rises high above, timber beams stretching like the ribs of a giant resting in sleep, holding the vastness in steady patience. At your feet, stone slabs spread outward, smoothed by time, glowing faintly in the torchlight. You pause on the threshold and listen. The first sound you hear is your own breathing, magnified softly by the size of the hall. You take another step and the sound of your foot against stone drifts upward, curling against the beams before falling gently back to you, no louder than a whisper. There is a peculiar peace in this echo. It is not sharp. It does not return to you with force. Instead, it rolls out softly, touches the walls, the rafters, the empty corners, and then dissolves like mist. The hall has learned, across centuries, how to carry sound without letting it overwhelm. It is like listening to your own thoughts carried away into the distance, made lighter, gentler, as if the hall itself has decided to keep the weight for you. Move further in, and notice how vastness can be calming. The walls are hung with faded banners, their colors subdued by age, their fabric resting still in the quiet air. Once, they may have snapped in the heat of celebration, but tonight, they simply hang, patient like memories content to rest. Tapestries ripple faintly if a draft slips through, their patterns blurred in the dim light, yet their softness breaks the severity of stone, reminding you that even in grandeur there is tenderness. At the far end, a hearth rises, its opening vast enough to swallow whole trees. Yet tonight the fire is small, only a few logs glowing, embers pulsing in slow rhythm. Their crackle is faint, like a voice speaking softly in another room. That gentle warmth does not try to dominate the hall. It simply exists, steady and constant, a reminder that even in the largest of spaces, calm can come from the smallest of lights. You move closer, and the warmth brushes against your skin, not intense but tender, balancing the coolness of the stones. Sit now, if only in your imagination, at a long wooden table. Its surface is scarred with time, polished by generations of hands, yet still solid, steady beneath your touch. Rest your palms upon it, and feel how its grain continues to hum, how wood carries memory just as stone does. Close your eyes for a moment and listen again. Perhaps you hear the faintest remnants of old life, laughter carried by the echoes of the rafters, footsteps long gone, the murmur of conversations rising and falling like tides. They are not loud, they are not intrusive. They are the gentlest of ghosts, reminding you that this hall has seen much, yet it holds it all with grace, never pushing, never pressing, only cradling. What is most soothing here is not only the silence, but the balance of sound and space. Each noise, a breath, a step, the shifting of wood, the sigh of wind against the door, finds its place, expanded but softened, magnified yet harmless. The hall teaches you that even echoes, even the return of your own voice can be peaceful, when allowed to stretch and fade in their own time. In this, the hall mirrors the process of rest itself. Thoughts rise, they echo, and then, if you allow them, they dissolve, leaving only calm. Stay here as long as you wish. The hall will not hurry you. Its vastness has waited centuries. It can wait a little longer for your heart to slow, for your eyelids to grow heavier, for your breath to even out. And as you linger, you realize that grandeur does not need to overwhelm. It can soothe. Vastness does not need to intimidate. It can embrace. Silence does not need to feel empty. It can be full of calm. So let the great hall hold you tonight. Let its echoes carry away the noise of the day. Let its banners and tapestries remind you that even memories rest. Let its hearth glow for you, small yet steady, as you close your eyes and drift deeper into the castle's calm. Block 6, the warmth and aroma of the castle kitchens. Leaving the calm vastness of the great hall behind, you follow a narrow passageway that slopes downward, its stones worn by countless feet, its air growing warmer with each step. You can almost hear the faint hum of activity that once filled this space centuries ago. A rhythm not of war or ceremony, but of nourishment, of meals prepared with patience and fire. The kitchen of a castle is often hidden, tucked away from the grandeur of towers and stained glass. Yet it holds a different kind of magic, a quieter kind of comfort. As you enter, you feel immediately how different the air becomes here. Not cool and hollow like the halls above, but rich, warm, infused with scents that stir memory and ease. The chamber opens into a broad, low-ceilinged room, its stone walls darkened by centuries of smoke and flame. Great fireplaces line the walls, each large enough for whole animals to roast. Yet tonight the fire is gentle, no longer roaring with demand but glowing softly. Embers pulsing in steady rhythm. You pause to listen, and you hear it. The crackle of wood, the soft hiss as sap surrenders to flame, the sigh of smoke curling upward into the flues. These are kitchen lullabies, songs of fire that soothe rather than startle, as though the very act of burning here has learned patience. Close your eyes for a moment and breathe. The air is heavy with aromas, not overwhelming, but layered like threads of memory. There is the faint sweetness of baked bread, lingering as though loaves still rest cooling on wooden boards. There is the earthy depth of herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, their leaves once crushed between fingers and sprinkled carefully into pots that simmered for hours. Perhaps you catch the buttery warmth of pastry, the sharp tang of cheese aging in cool corners, the quiet richness of stews that once filled the bellies of both lords and servants alike. These scents drift together, weaving a tapestry of comfort that feels timeless. You imagine the bustle that once existed here, cooks moving slowly but with certainty, knives striking rhythm against boards, the clatter of ladles against iron cauldrons. Yet in this moment, that bustle has faded, leaving only echoes softened into calm. The room does not rush you, it invites you. You walk slowly past wooden tables scarred with use, their surfaces polished by centuries of hands. You run your fingers along the grooves, feeling the indentation of time, the hum of memory left behind by generations who labored not for glory, but for sustenance. Their work was quiet, yet essential, and now their presence lingers in the peaceful atmosphere of the room. At the center of the kitchen stands a great table, and upon it you imagine baskets of fruit, their skins glowing under torchlight, pitchers of water drawn fresh from the well, wheels of bread stacked with care. The details may shift in your mind, yet the essence remains the same. Abundance prepared not with haste but with patience. There is something soothing in picturing this table, in realizing that even in the most fortified of castles, life slowed here to the rhythm of meals, to the pace of stirring, chopping, kneading. Nearby, shelves of clay jars rise against the wall, each one once filled with spices or dried goods. You picture the subtle scent of cinnamon escaping as a lid is lifted, the sharp aroma of peppercorns, the comfort of flour dusting the air as hands plunged into it. The jars stand silent now, yet they seem to breathe out faint memories, inviting you to lean closer, to let your imagination taste what cannot be tasted, to rest in the knowledge that even the simplest things, flour, water, herbs, salt, were once enough to sustain whole households. And then there are the hearths themselves. You step closer to one, its arch rising high, its stones blackened but smooth. A pot hangs above the embers, and though no stew bubbles now, you can almost hear the gentle plop of broth simmering, the steam rising with fragrance. the quiet chatter of those gathered around to test, to taste, to share. Kitchens were not only places of labor, they were places of gathering, of warmth, of laughter softened by firelight. Tonight, in the silence, they become something more. Places of meditation, where the very memory of nourishment is enough to fill you with ease. The longer you stay, the more you realize that the comfort of this room is not just in the food it once produced, but in the rhythm it represents. The kitchens remind you that life, no matter how grand or tumultuous, always returns to basics, to bread, to warmth, to water, to patience. These things remain long after feasts have ended, long after castles have fallen silent. The kitchens endure, whispering gently that rest is found not in grandeur, but in the simple acts of sustaining, in the slow transformation of raw into whole, of hunger into calm. So linger here a while. Let the warmth of the embers brush against your skin. Let the imagined aroma of bread soften your thoughts. Let the gentle crackle of fire ease the noise inside you. You do not need to cook. You do not need to eat. You only need to be here, surrounded by a chamber that has held centuries of comfort. The castle kitchens remind you that peace often hides in the simplest places, waiting patiently for you to notice. Block 7, the peace of gardens and walled courtyards. From the warmth of the kitchens, where fire and aroma wrapped you in their embrace, your steps carry you once again upward, toward a gentler place that feels both open and enclosed at the same time. The castle's gardens and walled courtyards. These are not grand spaces meant to impress with size or power. They are quieter sanctuaries, carefully arranged, tucked away between stone walls, created for those who sought fresh air without leaving the safety of the fortress. To step into such a garden is to find a different kind of stillness, one woven not from fire or echoing halls, but from earth, water, and the slow rhythm of growing things. The moment you cross the threshold into the courtyard, you notice how the air shifts. It is cooler here, touched with moisture rising from the soil, carrying the faint perfume of herbs and flowers. The walls stand tall around you, but instead of confinement, they offer protection, creating a cocoon where the outside world cannot intrude. Within this space, life unfolds at its own pace. Vines creeping patiently along stone, roses nodding gently in the evening breeze, fountains releasing water in steady streams that shimmer under torchlight. At the center of the courtyard, you hear the sound of water. A fountain carved with care spills gently into a basin of stone. The rhythm is constant, a trickle, a fall, a splash, each drop adding its note to the endless song. You pause to listen, and the sound begins to fill you, settling into the rhythm of your breath. The water is not hurried. It falls exactly as it must, reminding you that rest is not found in rushing, but in surrendering to what flows. You lean closer, and the droplets catch the faint glow of moonlight, scattering it into fragments of silver that dance across the walls. Along the edges of the courtyard, herbs grow in orderly rows, their fragrance rising when you brush your hand lightly across them. Rosemary, sharp yet soothing. Lavender with its deep floral calm. Mint, cool and refreshing. Each scent carries its own memory, yet together they weave into a perfume that feels like it belongs not only to this space, but to you as you breathe it in. The herbs were once planted for healing, for flavor, for practical use, but tonight they serve a different purpose, to remind you that nature continues to nurture quietly, endlessly, even when no one is watching. The flowers too play their part. Some stand in clusters, their petals pale and delicate, swaying with the breeze. Others bloom boldly, their colors softened in the night but still vibrant in memory. Reds that seem to glow, yellows that flicker like small flames. blues deep as twilight itself. You notice how their presence softens the harshness of stone, how each blossom feels like a whispered promise that even in fortresses, beauty finds a way to grow. Their stillness, their patience, becomes your stillness. A narrow pathway winds through the courtyard, paved with worn stones that crunch softly underfoot. You follow it slowly, letting each step carry you deeper into calm. Birds, long silent for the night, occasionally stir in the trees overhead, their wings rustling like sighs against the leaves. Crickets sing faintly in the corners, their chorus steady, soothing, timeless. The air is alive, yet not noisy. It is filled with small sounds that blend into a lullaby, guiding your mind toward rest. At one side of the garden stands a small bench of carved stone. You sit, feeling its coolness against your skin, and rest your gaze on the fountain. The courtyard stretches around you, quiet and protective, its walls rising like arms wrapped around your solitude. Above, the sky peers in, a small square of stars framed by towers, as though the heavens themselves were leaning down to join you in this sanctuary. You watch the stars slowly drift, their light faint yet enduring, and you realize that even here, within walls, the universe finds a way to enter, to remind you that peace is infinite, that rest is eternal. The walled garden teaches you something subtle yet profound, that tranquility is not the absence of boundaries, but the presence of harmony within them. The walls do not confine, they protect. The flowers do not clamor, they breathe. The water does not roar, it whispers. Each element is gentle, patient, inviting you to let go of whatever urgency lingers in your chest. Here, nothing is demanded of you but stillness. So remain in this courtyard as long as you wish. Feel the stone beneath you, the cool breath of night upon your face, the fragrance of herbs drifting through the air. Listen to the fountain's endless song, to the chorus of crickets, to the silence that holds them all together. In this sanctuary, you are not visitor but companion, welcomed by earth and water alike. And as your eyes grow heavier, as your breath grows deeper, you understand. This garden has always existed, waiting quietly for you to enter, waiting patiently to offer its peace. Block 8. The Silent Stories of Tapestries. As you rise from the cool stone bench in the courtyard and wander back inside, the air changes once more. The freshness of herbs and the softness of water give way to something warmer, quieter, more intimate. You find yourself in a long corridor, its stone walls draped with vast sheets of fabric, tapestries that hang like patient storytellers, waiting in silence for anyone who cares to pause and listen. At first glance, they appear only as decorations, vivid cloths meant to soften the sternness of stone. But as your eyes adjust to the dim glow of torches, you realize that each one holds entire worlds within its threads, stitched with care centuries ago, still breathing their quiet tales into the present. You step closer to one. Its colors, though faded with age, remain surprisingly vibrant, as if the threads themselves have trapped light from the past and continue to release it slowly into the room. Figures emerge. A knight upon a horse, a lady carrying flowers, a forest alive with animals both real and imagined. The details are not sharp but soft, blurred by time in a way that feels almost dreamlike. The tapestry does not demand precision, it invites imagination, asking you to complete the story in your mind, to drift gently through its woven landscape as if walking through a dream. Your hand hovers just above the fabric, and you can almost feel its texture without touching it. The slight roughness of wool, the smoothness of silk threads, the layered density where colors overlap. Each thread was placed with intention, and yet together they create something effortless, flowing, endless. The artisans who labored here did not weave for themselves, but for those who would come after. For you, centuries later, to stand in stillness and be soothed by the gentle harmony of color and form. Their hands are long gone, but their patience remains, woven into every inch of cloth. As you move slowly along the corridor, you notice how each tapestry carries its own mood. One may depict a hunt, figures chasing stags through green meadows, yet even this scene, once filled with action, now rests in stillness, frozen in time, its motion transformed into calm. Another shows a banquet, tables laden with food, musicians playing instruments, dancers moving gracefully. But here too the noise is absent. The music is silent, the laughter muted, the feast eternal but quiet. Each tapestry is like a memory you are allowed to hold without being overwhelmed. A story that no longer insists on being told but simply rests in gentle color. There is something profoundly peaceful about the way tapestries absorb sound. In a hall of stone, echoes would normally bounce and linger. But here, the heavy fabric softens everything, creating a cocoon of quiet. Your footsteps no longer echo sharply. They are muffled, absorbed into the threads as if the stories themselves are holding your presence, welcoming you and easing you deeper into calm. The corridor feels less like a passage and more like a cradle, lined with the soft arms of history. Pause at another tapestry, and you notice not figures this time, but patterns. Vines curling endlessly, flowers blooming in repeating rhythm, stars stitched in gold that shimmer faintly in the light. These patterns are meditations in themselves, cycles without end, shapes that lead the eye gently forward without ever breaking the flow. You could follow a single vine across the entire length of fabric and never reach an ending, only curves and loops, like the slow unfolding of thought that drifts into sleep. And perhaps the most soothing detail is how tapestries blur the line between reality and imagination. Were those faces real, belonging to people who once lived? Or are they inventions, archetypes, dreams caught in thread? You cannot know for sure, and the not knowing is itself a relief. You are not asked to analyze, to decide, to solve. You are simply asked to gaze, to allow the woven images to drift in and out of your awareness, like clouds crossing the sky. The longer you linger here, the more you realize that tapestries are not meant to impress with grandeur, but to comfort with patience. They are not loud, they are not urgent. They exist in silence, softened by time, carrying beauty in a form that asks nothing from you but stillness. They remind you that stories need not be told with words or voices. Sometimes they are best whispered through thread and color, waiting for quiet hearts to notice. So stay in this corridor a while. Let the thread soften your thoughts. Let the muted colors ease your eyes. Let the silence between the woven figures become your silence too. These tapestries have waited centuries to offer their stories, and tonight they offer them only to soothe you, to guide you deeper into calm, to weave your own rest into their endless cloth. Block 9, the gentle music of lutes and harps. Leaving behind the stillness of the woven tapestries, you wander deeper into the castle until the silence itself begins to change. At first, it is only the faintest impression, a vibration in the air, so subtle that you wonder whether you are imagining it. But as you pause and listen, you realize it is not silence at all, but music. Soft, distant, woven into the very air like the threads of the fabrics you just left behind. It is the sound of strings, the quiet plucking of a lute, the delicate sweep of a harp, notes rising like sparks into the rafters and dissolving into the stillness above. This is not the music of ceremony or celebration. It is slower, gentler, almost hesitant, as though it exists only for you, as though the castle itself has chosen to lull you with a song. You step into a smaller chamber, warm and dimly lit, where the glow of candles trembles across stone walls. The music is clearer here, though it remains unhurried, each note falling like a drop of water into a still pool. A figure may sit in the corner, unseen, plucking strings softly, but in truth the player does not matter. What matters is the sound, the way the lute's wooden body hums with every vibration, the way the harp strings shimmer like threads of light stretched into air. Together they create a harmony that is not meant to rouse but to cradle, a harmony that asks nothing from you but listening. Close your eyes and feel the sound. The lute is steady, each note rounded and warm like footsteps taken slowly along a garden path. The harp is lighter, higher, cascading like moonlight breaking into silver ripples across water. When they meet, the two instruments weave together not in conflict, but in companionship, each supporting the other, creating patterns that rise and fall with the softness of breathing. The music does not rush forward. It circles gently, repeating themes as though reminding you that rest comes not from seeking new ground, but from returning again and again to what soothes. You imagine the way the vibrations travel through the chamber. The strings hum, the air carries the sound, and the stone walls absorb it with patience. Each note lingers a little longer than it should, hanging in the space before melting into silence. This prolonging is where the calm resides, in the space between sounds, in the pauses that stretch like bridges over still water. You find yourself leaning into those pauses, into the gentle weightlessness they create, as though silence itself has been tuned into music. Perhaps you remember how such instruments were once played in courts, at banquets, at gatherings, where lords and ladies dined beneath tapestries and light. But tonight, that grandeur is gone. There are no voices, no feasts, no distraction. The music belongs only to you, offered in secret, a private performance that does not seek applause. The lute does not care if you listen with sharp attention or if you drift into sleep mid-phrase. The harp does not demand recognition. It exists only to pour silver threads into the air, threads that settle upon your shoulders, your breath, your thoughts. Watch the candle flames as the music continues. They sway gently with the vibrations, as if dancing to the rhythm, their shadows elongating and contracting on the walls. The chamber itself becomes part of the song, the flicker of light, the hum of air, the faint creak of wood. Each element joins the music without effort, creating a composition that is more than sound. It is atmosphere, it is memory, it is rest, given shape and tone. And as you listen, you notice how your own body responds. Your breath slows, unconsciously matching the pace of the melody. Your shoulders loosen. Even your heartbeat seems to adjust, finding a softer rhythm that beats in time with the gentle pluck of strings. Music has always had this power, but here, within the patient walls of the castle, it feels more profound, as if the stones themselves have become resonant, as if centuries of listening have tuned them into instruments too. The longer you linger, the more the music seems to dissolve the boundaries of space. You can no longer tell whether the notes come from a corner of the room, from the stones, or from within yourself. It becomes less a sound and more a presence, a companion that fills the chamber with comfort, that drapes itself around you like a cloak. You realize then that you do not need to follow the melody, do not need to understand or analyze. You only need to let it carry you, gently, steadily, like a boat gliding downstream. So remain here as long as you wish. Let the lute's warmth hold your thoughts. Let the harp's silver cascade wash over your eyes until they grow heavy. Let the silence between the notes remind you that calm is not absence, but fullness, that music is not only heard but felt, And as the final notes fade into nothing, you are left with something even more soothing. The realization that the castle itself is still singing, and it will continue to sing for you until you surrender to sleep. Block 10, the quiet invitation of the private chambers. From the gentle notes of the lute and harp that still linger in your breath, you begin to move deeper into the castle, guided by narrow staircases and soft pools of torchlight, until you arrive at the part of the fortress that feels most human, most intimate, most tender, the private chambers. These rooms were never designed to intimidate or to impress visiting courts. They were sanctuaries, carved from stone and softened with wood and fabric, places where life slowed, where dreams were sheltered, where night stretched into quiet refuge. To step into such a chamber is to feel the castle exhale, as though its walls, heavy with history, finally release their weight in order to cradle you in silence. The door before you is wooden, bound with iron, yet when you push it open, it does not resist. It sighs gently, swinging inward, revealing a space bathed in the flicker of a single fire. The chamber is not vast like the great hall, not open like the courtyard, but small, contained, and safe. A bed stands at its center, high and broad, draped with heavy curtains and layered with soft fabrics. Its presence dominates the room not with grandeur, but with the promise of rest. You walk slowly toward it, your steps muffled by rugs woven centuries ago, their patterns blurred by time but still holding fragments of color. The air here is warmer, touched by the fire's glow, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke mixed with the sweetness of aged timber. On a nearby table rests a candle, its flame steady, its wax pooling slowly, marking time not with urgency, but with patience. The walls, though built of stone, seem gentler in this space, their hardness hidden behind tapestries and draperies that soften the echo, wrapping the room in a cocoon of quiet. You lower yourself into a chair, and for a moment, you simply listen. The fire crackles softly, the candle hums, and outside the narrow window, the wind brushes faintly against the shutters. Everything is small, everything is hushed, everything is safe. Imagine drawing the bed curtains closed, sealing yourself into a world apart, where the only light is the soft shimmer of embers, where the only sound is your own breath, steady and slow. The mattress beneath you is firm yet forgiving, the blankets heavy but comforting, their weight pressing gently upon you like the embrace of time itself. These beds, once shared by kings and queens, by weary knights and wandering guests, now exist for you alone, their memory repurposed into your sanctuary. You sink into the thought of them, letting the layers of fabric and wood dissolve the distance between centuries, until you feel yourself carried by the same peace that lulled countless others before you. And here, in this private chamber, with the fire's glow softening your gaze and the curtains whispering their invitation to close your eyes, I want to pause for a moment to ask something gentle of you. If this journey through the castle has brought you comfort, if these wandering steps through towers, halls, kitchens, gardens, and music have helped you breathe slower and let go of the weight of your day, I invite you to support this sanctuary we are building together. Please take a moment to like this video. It helps more people find their way into this calm. Leave a comment below, perhaps sharing which part of the castle most soothed you tonight, or even which detail stayed with you as you listened. And above all, subscribe to the channel, so that together we can continue walking into places like this, weaving more nights of peace, more journeys of quiet, more tapestries of rest. Your support is the flame that keeps these torches lit, the reason these castles remain open for wandering. Now return to the chamber. The fire is lowering itself into embers. The candle's wax has grown heavy, and the curtains are ready to be drawn. You are not in a fortress of defense, but in a cradle of calm. Let the walls watch over you. Let the fabrics warm you. Let the silence fold itself around you. Tonight, this room belongs to you, and its only purpose is to remind you that you are safe, you are sheltered, and you are free to rest. Block 11, the hearth's gentle embrace. When you leave the private chamber and wander once more into the castle's deeper heart, your path leads you toward the glow of something older than stone walls or carved wood, something that has always been a companion to human life. Fire. Not the roaring blaze of battle, nor the destructive flames that consume, but the quiet, steady presence of the great hearth. In castles, hearths were not only for warmth or cooking, they were the pulse of the household, a gathering place where voices softened, where hands extended to the glow, where stories floated into the smoke and vanished among the rafters. To sit before such a hearth is to sit at the center of time, watching centuries burn down into embers, each flame carrying with it a memory, each spark a fragment of peace. The hearth is vast, tall enough that you could step inside its arch if you wished. Its stones are darkened with soot, polished by smoke and years of flame, yet they do not appear tired. They appear faithful, as though they have accepted their task for eternity. A few logs rest upon the grate, and as they burn, they release a rhythm older than any instrument. The crackle of bark splitting, the hiss of sap, the occasional pop that echoes like a small star bursting in the night. The firelight dances across the room, painting the walls in gold and amber, softening the sharp lines of stone into something alive, something breathing. Sit down upon the long wooden bench that stretches before the hearth. The wood is worn smooth by countless others who have rested here, their weight absorbed into its grain, their warmth mingled with the heat of the flames. As you lower yourself, you feel the gentle shift of the bench beneath you, welcoming you as if you have joined a quiet lineage of dreamers who once sat in the very same place. The heat reaches you slowly, not in a rush, but in a tender wave, brushing against your skin, easing the chill from your bones. You draw closer, letting the glow bathe your face, and notice how your thoughts, too, seem to burn away, one by one, like dry leaves disappearing into ash. The hearth was always a communal place, and though tonight it is yours alone, you can almost hear the murmurs of voices carried in its smoke. Families once gathered here after long days of labor, warming their hands, sharing simple meals. Children once sat cross-legged at the edge, listening to stories told in soft tones, their eyes wide in the flicker of flame. Even weary travelers welcomed for a night once rested here, their silence mingling with the fire's steady song. The hearth absorbed it all, yet never lost its calm. It became a keeper of memory, a witness to countless evenings where burdens grew lighter and hearts grew warmer. Listen to the fire closely now. Beneath the crackle and hiss, there is a deeper sound, a low hum, almost imperceptible. The sound of flame breathing. It is steady, constant, patient, like the earth itself sighing through wood. You realize that this sound is older than castles, older than walls, older than kings or queens. It is the sound of continuity, of life moving quietly forward. And in that realization, you feel yourself joined to something vast and timeless, something that has comforted humans since the first sparks were struck. The shadows around you sway gently as the flames dance. They climb the walls, stretch across the ceiling beams, then fall again, like waves rising and receding upon an invisible shore. There is rhythm in these shadows, a rhythm that soothes the eye and stills the mind. You do not need to think, you only need to watch. The fire paints a moving picture that is never the same, yet always familiar. It is change without chaos, movement without urgency, light without demand. As the logs burn lower, Embers gather beneath them, glowing like small suns in miniature. Their light is steadier, deeper, quieter. They do not leap or crackle. They glow with patience, holding their heat as though unwilling to let the night grow cold. You lean closer, and the sight of those embers brings with it a deep calm, reminding you that even when flames fade, warmth endures. Even when brilliance dies down, steady light remains. There is a lesson here, that you too may glow quietly without rushing, without effort, simply by being. Stay before the hearth as long as you wish. Let its warmth ease your shoulders. Let its shadows quiet your thoughts. Let its steady hum remind you that rest is natural, inevitable, and safe. You are not the first to sit here, and you will not be the last. But tonight, the fire belongs to you. Tonight it burns not to feed an army, not to impress guests, but to cradle you in its glow. And as your eyes grow heavier, as your breath grows slower, you realize that the hearth has always known this. It has always been waiting to sing you to sleep. Block 12, the whispering silence of night corridors. When you rise from the warmth of the great hearth, your body softened by its glow, and your thoughts lulled by the slow rhythm of flame, you step once again into the arteries of the castle, its corridors. By day, these passageways might be filled with hurried footsteps, voices echoing against stone, servants carrying trays, guards patrolling with measured strides. But at night, when torches burn low and most chambers are at rest, the corridors belong to silence. They stretch ahead of you like rivers of shadow, and as you walk, you discover that silence itself can be textured, that even absence has a voice if you listen closely enough. The floor beneath you is stone, its surface uneven, worn by centuries of passage. Each step you take produces a soft sound, a muted tap that seems louder than it should, only because it is met by such deep stillness. Yet even this sound does not return to you harshly. The walls receive it, soften it, and hand it gently back, like a mother returning a whispered word. You pause for a moment, standing perfectly still, and in that pause you hear the subtle life of the corridor. The faint sigh of wind seeping through cracks and shutters, the occasional drip of water far off in the distance, the creak of wood settling as the castle exhales in its sleep. Along the walls hang sconces, each holding a torch whose flame wavers quietly, painting the stones with shifting amber. The light does not dominate, it trembles gently, as though it too has grown tired and wishes to rest. Shadows stretch long across the floor, weaving into one another, bending at corners, forming shapes that seem to move and breathe but never threaten. To walk through this play of shadow and flame is to walk through a dream. Everything familiar, yet softened. Everything quiet, yet alive. The corridor narrows in places, forcing you to brush close to the walls. Here you feel the chill of stone against your fingertips, its coolness grounding you, steadying you. In other stretches, the passage opens into small alcoves where benches rest, inviting you to pause, to sit, to listen. You imagine servants once waiting here, or travelers setting down burdens for a moment, and their quiet patience still lingers in the air. The castle remembers even these small pauses, and tonight, it offers them to you as well. Occasionally you pass a window, narrow and high, cut into the thickness of stone. Through it, the night peers in, a sliver of moonlight, a patch of stars, the soft rustle of trees outside. These glimpses are brief, but they remind you that the world beyond continues its rhythm, even as you wander in silence within. The contrast between outside and inside feels soothing. The vastness of the night sky framed by the intimacy of a narrow corridor. Infinity held within stone. What is most calming here is the rhythm of your walk. Step after step, sound after sound. you find yourself falling into a pattern that mirrors the heartbeat, that mirrors the act of breathing. The corridor becomes not just a place to pass through, but a meditation. Each step a reminder of continuity, of endurance, of calm. You could walk forever and never reach an ending, because the peace lies not in arrival but in the motion itself, in the endless unfolding of silence. And as you continue, you notice that the silence has changed. It no longer feels empty, but full of echoes softened into whispers, full of shadows that cradle rather than conceal, full of breath and memory woven into the very stones. You realize then that the corridor is not merely a path, it is a companion guiding you deeper into rest, teaching you that even the simplest of spaces can carry infinite calm if you allow yourself to notice. So keep walking a little longer. Let the torches sway, let the shadows bend, let the silence hum around you. There is no need to hurry, no need to seek an ending. The corridor will carry you forward gently, step by step, until even walking feels like dreaming, until silence itself becomes your guide into sleep. Block 13, the sacred quiet of the chapel. From the hush of the night corridors, where every step carried you deeper into silence, you now turn toward a doorway that feels different from the rest. The air seems gentler here, almost reverent, as though it remembers centuries of whispered prayers and songs rising into its rafters. You step through the wooden door, heavy but patient in its movement, and find yourself inside the castle's chapel, a space smaller than the grand cathedrals of cities, but filled with a quiet that feels far greater than its size. The chapel does not overwhelm you with grandeur. Instead, it gathers you into its calm, inviting you to linger, to breathe, to let the weight of stone and spirit ease you into peace. The first thing you notice is the air. It carries a faint sweetness, as if incense burned here long ago and left behind its memory. There is also the dryness of aged wood, the coolness of stone that has held centuries of footsteps and kneeling. Together, these scents weave into something familiar, something that feels like a gentle reminder of rest after effort, of silence after sound. You pause at the threshold and allow yourself to breathe it in slowly, and with each breath you feel your chest loosen. Your thoughts grow softer, your body lean more fully into calm. The chapel is lit by only a few candles, their flames trembling but steady, their glow reflected in polished brass holders that gleam faintly against the stone. Shadows cling to the corners, yet they do not threaten. They wait respectfully, giving the candles room to do their gentle work. Along the walls, narrow windows of stained glass filter what little moonlight seeps in, scattering it into faint colors across the floor. Reds, blues, and golds fall upon the stone like soft brush strokes, painting the silence with hues that feel like whispers of another world. At the far end stands an altar, simple and unadorned, a surface of wood worn smooth by countless hands. Above it rises a cross, carved from the same timber as the beams above, its lines plain yet steady, holding not power, but presence. You walk slowly toward it, your footsteps softened by the thick rugs that line the aisle. Each step feels as though it is measured by something greater than time, as if the very act of moving forward here is a form of prayer. And then you notice the sound, not loud, not present in the moment, but lingering in memory, echoing faintly in the stones. It is the echo of voices, of chants, of songs sung in unison. You cannot hear the words, but you feel the cadence, the rise and fall of human voices blending into harmony. Imagine monks gathered here at dawn, their voices weaving like threads into a single fabric of sound. Imagine families kneeling, whispering prayers of gratitude or hope. The walls have absorbed it all, and tonight they release it gently, not as noise but as memory, like a lullaby that drifts just at the edge of hearing. Sit for a moment upon one of the wooden pews. The wood is firm, yet it yields slightly under your weight, polished smooth by centuries of worshippers. Rest your hands upon it, feel its grain, its quiet hum. Around you the silence deepens, but it is not an empty silence. It is a silence filled with presence, with patience, with echoes of faith that have lingered long after voices fell silent. In this stillness, you realize that you do not need to pray or to sing. Simply being here is enough. Simply breathing within these walls is itself an act of rest. The chapel teaches you something subtle, that peace is not always found in grandeur, but in small spaces dedicated to stillness. Its walls do not shout, they listen. Its light does not blaze, it glows. Its silence does not demand, it invites. You are not asked to give anything here but your presence, and even that is received with gentleness. Stay as long as you wish. Let the faint memory of chant soothe your ears. Let the candlelight soften your gaze. Let the presence of the cross steady your heart. The chapel does not hurry. It waits, as it has waited for centuries, for each visitor to rest, to release, to let go. And as you sit within its embrace, you understand that this castle is not only a fortress of stone, but a sanctuary of spirit, a place where even silence sings. Block 14, the scent of wood and the weight of iron. As you leave the chapel, its faint echoes of prayer still humming in your chest, your hand brushes against another detail of the castle that carries its own quiet story: the doors. They are everywhere, each one different, each one aged into uniqueness by centuries of use. Unlike the vast walls or high towers, doors are personal, designed not to impress but to connect, to open and close, to invite or protect. To walk through a castle is to encounter them constantly, and each time you do, you sense that they are more than passageways. They are keepers of memory, breathing with the scent of wood, strengthened with the patience of iron. You stop before one such door, tall and heavy, its wood darkened by age until it looks almost black in the dim torchlight. Your fingers rest against it, and you notice how smooth it feels in some places, worn down by countless hands that have pushed it open over the centuries. In other places, it is rough, ridged with grain that still whispers of the forest it once belonged to. The scent rises faintly, surprising you, a mixture of resin, smoke, and time itself. Even after all these years, the wood carries life within it, exhaling softly into the cool air, reminding you that though it has been shaped, cut, and bound, it is still part of the living world. Iron studs dot the surface of the door, their shapes round and cool under your touch. Once hammered in place to hold the planks together, they now serve as anchors of memory, small moons embedded into the wooden sky. They are not sharp, not threatening. They are steady, grounding, their coldness balancing the warmth of the wood. You trace them with your fingertips, and their chill steadies your thoughts, slows your breathing, anchors you to the moment. The hinges, too, hum with age. They groan softly when the door shifts, but not harshly. Their sound is low, resonant, like the deep voice of an old friend speaking in the dark. You imagine how many times these hinges have turned, how many times this door has opened to welcome or closed to protect. And yet, despite all the years of strain, they still move with patience, carrying their burden without complaint. There is something deeply calming about the way these doors combine opposites. Wood, warm and living, softened by time. Iron, cold and enduring, steadfast through centuries. Together, they create balance, softness and strength, warmth and coolness, welcome and closure. To stand before such a door is to feel that balance seep into you, teaching your body how to rest, reminding your mind that even the strongest barriers can also be gentle companions. As you press lightly against the wood, the door yields with surprising ease. It swings open, its weight guided by the hinges, and for a moment, you hear the faintest sigh. Wood and iron moving together in harmony. The sound is not sharp, not startling. It is slow, drawn out like a breath exhaled after a long pause. Beyond the doorway lies only more stillness, more stone, more shadow. But the act of crossing through feels ceremonial, as though the door itself has blessed your passage. You pause, and in that pause, you realize how many lives these doors have touched. Kings with heavy crowns, children chasing laughter, servants carrying trays, lovers stealing glances, travelers seeking shelter. Each one pressed their hand against this wood. Each one felt the weight of the iron. Each one passed through, leaving behind the faintest trace of their presence. And now you too add your quiet mark, not with noise, not with urgency, but with stillness, simply by noticing, simply by feeling. The scent lingers on your hand, faint smoke, faint resin, faint age. You bring it closer and it grounds you further, as though the door itself has shared a fragment of its endurance with you. You realize that doors, like sleep, are thresholds, transitions from one state to another, from one place to another. And just as this door allows you to move gently from chapel to corridor, so too will sleep allow you to move gently from waking into dreaming, from thought into rest. So remain with the door for a moment longer. Let the wood's warmth soften your palm. Let the iron's coolness steady your breath. Let the quiet sigh of the hinges remind you that even the heaviest burdens can move with grace. And when you are ready, step through. Slowly, calmly, carried not by urgency but by the patience of wood and iron that have been opening and closing for centuries, waiting for you tonight. Block 15, the gentle rhythm of daily life. Beyond the doors of wood and iron, the castle stretches into its wider world of routine. And here you begin to sense not only the silence of night, but the echoes of days that once unfolded within these walls. Castles are often remembered for moments of grandeur, coronations, battles, feasts, processions. But the truth is that most of their life was lived in rhythms so ordinary, so repetitive, that they became meditative in their own way. And it is in imagining these daily patterns, slow and patient, that you find another form of rest, the comfort of routine, the reassurance of cycles, the peace of life lived not in haste but in continuity. Picture the castle as dawn breaks. The sky glows faintly above the towers, and within, the day stirs with soft murmurs. A servant lights a fire in the hearth, the crackles spreading warmth into stone halls. Someone draws water from the well, the rope creaking as the bucket rises, droplets falling back in small silver splashes. In the kitchens, bread is kneaded slowly, the rhythm of hands pressing into dough steady, unhurried, the fragrance of yeast filling the air even before the oven's glow. These small beginnings ripple outward, and before long the castle is awake, not with noise, but with the hum of life continuing, as it always has. Walk through the courtyard in your imagination, and you will see how measured the pace is. Horses are led slowly to troughs, their hooves striking the stones with calm rhythm. Stable doors open with gentle creaks, and the animals breathe clouds into the cool morning air. Children run in circles, their laughter soft, absorbed quickly by the walls. Someone sweeps, the bristles scratching against stone in steady strokes, the dust rising and then settling again. Nothing rushes. Everything moves in a tempo that feels almost like breathing. Within the chambers, too, life unfolds at this slower pace. Maids carry linens folded neatly in their arms, walking with steady steps down corridors softened by tapestries. Candles are trimmed, their wicks shortened, their flames coaxed into steadiness. Windows are unlatched to let in the day, and the breeze stirs gently through curtains, carrying with it the scent of grass, of river water, of fresh air that lightens the heaviness of stone. Each action may be simple, but together they form a song of quiet persistence, a rhythm that has endured through centuries. Even the meals, so often thought of as grand banquets, were most of the time modest and calm. A loaf of bread shared at a wooden table, a bowl of broth steaming gently, a cup of water drawn fresh from the spring. People spoke in low tones, or sometimes not at all, the meal itself becoming a pause in the day's cycle, a chance for breath. Imagine sitting at such a table, the wood scarred by years of use, the light falling softly from a narrow window, the sound of spoons tapping faintly against bowls. It is not spectacle, but simplicity, and in that simplicity, peace takes root. The castle's work followed the sun. When daylight rose, tasks began, mending clothing, tending animals, repairing tools, grinding grain. Each sound, the scrape of metal, the rhythm of hammers, the splash of water, folded into the daily hymn. When evening came, the pace slowed. Fires were banked, doors bolted gently, candles snuffed one by one. By nightfall, silence reclaimed the corridors, and the castle exhaled into sleep once more. There is something profoundly soothing in realizing that this rhythm repeated itself endlessly, year after year, generation after generation. Life here was not always dramatic, not always defined by the stories told in chronicles. Most days were ordinary, and in their ordinariness they became sacred in their own way. They teach us that peace can be found not in escaping routine, but in embracing it, in letting the cycles of daily life remind us that continuity itself is a form of rest. So linger for a while in this rhythm. Let the thought of sweeping bristles, of kneading hands, of crackling fires soothe your mind. Let the steady pace of footsteps on stone remind you that life can be slow, and slow is enough. The castle's days passed not with urgency, but with patience. And tonight, as you imagine them, you are invited into that same patience, that same rhythm. Close your eyes and step into their cycle, and let the continuity carry you gently into your own rest. Block 16, the embrace of guest chambers and canopied beds. From the rhythm of daily life that still hums softly in your imagination, the sweep of bristles, the kneading of bread, the steady echo of footsteps, you drift once more through the castle's winding passages until you arrive at a space set aside for welcome, the guest chambers. Unlike the private rooms of kings or the bustling quarters of servants, these chambers were created with a gentler purpose, to offer shelter, comfort, and rest to those who had traveled far. To step into one is to step into the castle's softer heart, where hospitality and stillness meet, where a bed waits not only to support your body but to cradle your spirit. The door creaks softly as it opens, and the chamber greets you with air touched by wood, wool, and faint traces of lavender once tucked into linens. A window sits high in the wall, its shutters drawn, allowing only the thinnest thread of moonlight to spill across the floor. The room is simple, yet everything about it speaks of care. The rugs laid carefully to soften the stone beneath your feet, the chest at the foot of the bed waiting patiently, the small table set with a pitcher and cup, the candle stub left behind as if expecting you. Nothing here clamors for attention, yet every detail invites you to exhale. At the center of the room stands the bed itself, tall and broad, crowned with a canopy that hangs in soft folds. The curtains are drawn back, waiting for you, their fabric heavy yet tender, their edges swaying slightly in the breath of night. You approach slowly, and the sight alone brings calm. These beds were not only places to sleep, but sanctuaries within sanctuaries. When the curtains closed, they created a cocoon, a small world apart from the vast stone of the castle, a refuge of fabric and wood where rest was not only possible but inevitable. Imagine yourself lowering onto the mattress. It is firm beneath you, yet softened by layers of quilts and blankets that carry the faint scent of herbs woven into their threads. The pillows yield gently, cradling your head, supporting the weight of thought until thought itself begins to fade. You draw the curtains slowly, and with that gesture, the world outside, the stone walls, the corridors, the echoes, all fall away. Within this small circle there is only you, the fabric's embrace and the quiet breath of the chamber. The canopy above shelters you like a sky within the room, its folds catching shadows and holding them gently. The air inside feels warmer, calmer, as though the bed itself breathes with you. Each inhale draws in faint traces of linen and wood smoke. Each exhale dissolves into the fabric, carried away by centuries of others who once rested here. You are not alone in this cocoon. You are accompanied by the memory of countless travelers who laid their weariness down, who closed their eyes beneath this canopy and found solace. Their presence lingers not as noise, but as calm, woven invisibly into the threads. The guest chambers were places of stories, too. Imagine voices lowered to whispers as candles dimmed, travelers sharing tales of distant roads, of rivers crossed, of forests passed through. Imagine the quiet hush that followed as one by one those voices faded, replaced by the slow rhythm of sleep. Even now the walls seem to hold fragments of those murmurs, softened into a lullaby without words, a chorus of slumber that invites you to join. What is most comforting here is not the grandeur of the room, but its simplicity. A chest, a table, a bed, a candle. Nothing more is needed, nothing more is asked. The chamber itself seems to understand that rest does not require excess, only safety, warmth, and stillness. And it offers these things freely, without question, without demand. So lie here in your imagination a little longer. Feel the curtains close around you. Feel the weight of the blanket settle. Feel your breath grow slower in time with the hush of the chamber. Outside, the castle continues its patient vigil, its towers watching, its walls holding firm. But here within the guest chamber, you are free to surrender, free to drift, free to let go. The bed does not ask you to rise early, does not demand alertness. It asks only that you rest. Block 17, the distant calm of forests beyond the walls. Even as you lie within the softness of the guest chamber's canopied bed, you realize that the castle is not an island unto itself. Its walls, its towers, its courtyards are all embraced by something larger, something older, the forests that stretch beyond its gates. By day, these woods might seem vast and wild, filled with paths that wind into mystery, their shadows thick, their branches reaching in silent gestures. But at night, from within the safety of the castle, the forest becomes something else entirely. A living lullaby that surrounds the stone with its endless, calming song. If you listen carefully, you can hear it through the narrow windows and the cracks in wooden shutters. The first sound is the wind, weaving gently through branches. It is not harsh, not a storm tearing at leaves, but a steady, patient movement, like hands brushing softly across harp strings. Each gust carries a rhythm of its own, rustling through the canopy above, bending grass at the forest's edge, slipping across the moat and through the castle walls. The wind does not arrive in rushes. It arrives in waves, rising and falling with the same pace as breath. Next comes the chorus of night creatures. Crickets sing their steady hymn, their notes repeated endlessly, creating a texture of sound that feels less like noise and more like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Owls call from the shadows, their voices low and resonant, floating through the stillness like questions whispered into the night. From deeper within the woods, a fox may stir, its steps soft upon fallen leaves, barely audible but present, reminding you that life moves gently even in darkness. Each sound finds its place in the tapestry, none competing, all blending into harmony. There is water too, if you listen closely, the faint trickle of a stream winding somewhere beyond the castle walls. It moves quietly, slipping over stones, carrying reflections of moonlight upon its surface. The sound reaches you like a memory, distant but steady, reminding you of movement without hurry, of time that flows without demand. Even unseen, the stream's presence soothes you, its soft current weaving seamlessly into the night's song. Imagine stepping outside the castle gates wrapped in a cloak against the coolness, and standing at the edge of those trees. The trunks rise like pillars in a cathedral of nature, their branches forming arches above, their leaves trembling with each breath of wind. The ground is soft with moss, with fallen needles, with earth that yields gently beneath your feet. The air is rich with the scent of pine, oak, damp soil, grounding, steadying, ancient. And above, the stars blink through the gaps in the canopy, their light faint but patient, guiding you not with brilliance but with constancy. From within the castle, however, the forest does not call you outward. It does not demand exploration or adventure. It simply surrounds, guards, and sings. Its song is not one of danger, but of reassurance, that the world beyond stone is alive, that it breathes, that it endures. The castle may have been built for defense, but the forest was built for rest. Its presence a blanket laid around the fortress, its voice a whisper that never ends. And perhaps the most soothing realization is that this song has always been there. Long before the castle rose, the forest sang. Long after, it will continue. You are part of its audience only for a moment, but in that moment, it feels as though the trees themselves are leaning closer to cradle you, their branches bending not to ward off but to shelter, to protect. So listen a little longer. Let the wind's rhythm slow your own. Let the cricket's steady hymn remind you of constancy. Let the owl's call echo like a gentle bell in the distance. Let the unseen stream flow through your imagination, carrying your thoughts away. The castle is strong, but the forest is eternal, and tonight the two exist together to soothe you. Stone and wood, silence and song, rest within walls and rest beyond them. Block 18, the silence after battles long past. As the forest sings softly beyond the walls, your thoughts drift back to the castle itself, to what these stones once witnessed, to the weight they once carried. For though tonight we wander in quiet, though every hall and chamber now feels like a cradle of stillness, there were times when these very walls shook with noise, the clamor of armor, the clash of steel, the cries of command. Castles were born out of necessity, out of defense, out of vigilance. And yet the true wonder is not in the memory of conflict, but in the way silence always returned. What endures tonight is not the echo of battles, but the peace that followed, the calm that settled like dew upon the stones, reminding you that even after storms, stillness finds its way back. Imagine the courtyard centuries ago filled with movement and sound, horses stamping, men shouting, weapons striking against shields. The air would have been thick with urgency, every echo sharp, every moment tense. Yet now, that same courtyard rests in quiet, its stones cool, its gravel crunching only under your gentle step. The noise has dissolved, faded into memory, leaving behind only the strength of walls and the patience of time. There is something deeply soothing in realizing that even the loudest moments of history eventually soften, that even walls built for defense have learned to rest. Walk through a hall that once carried orders shouted in haste, and you find only the hush of air moving through narrow windows. The banners that once bore the marks of battle now hang still, faded into muted colors, swaying only if the wind allows. Where swords once clashed, tapestries now whisper. Where armor once clattered, silence now reigns. The castle does not cling to its storms, it transforms them, folding them into layers of calm that deepen its quiet. Step into the armory in your imagination. Once it would have been alive with the ring of metal, with sparks flying as weapons were sharpened, with the heavy tread of boots across the floor. Tonight, the armory stands empty. The racks may still hold their forms. Shadows of spears, the curve of helmets, the faint outline of shields. But the noise is gone. In its place is stillness, so complete that you can hear your own breath, your own heartbeat. Even in this room, once defined by readiness and tension, you feel a strange safety, a reminder that preparation too eventually gives way to rest. There is a lesson in this silence after storms, that no noise, no urgency, no conflict endures forever. Everything subsides. The walls themselves seem to say it, their cracks filled with moss, their edges softened by weather, their silence grown stronger than any shout. They remind you that battles, no matter how fierce, are temporary, but peace has a way of returning again and again, claiming its place. Even the towers once lit with beacons to warn of approach, now hold only stars in their sight. They look out not for armies, but for constellations, their vigil transformed from defense to wonder. The gates, once slammed shut with force, now rest quietly on their hinges, sighing only when moved by the wind. The castle's strength remains, but its purpose has changed. It is no longer a fortress against others. It has become a fortress for peace, for calm, for sleep. And as you stand in this silence, you feel a kinship with the stones. You too have known noise, urgency, conflict within yourself. You too have carried battles in your mind, storms in your heart. But like the castle, you are reminded that silence always returns, that calm always finds a way to seep back in, steady and patient. The castle teaches you not to fear the noise, but to trust the stillness that follows, to rest in the certainty that even the loudest storms fade into quiet. So linger here, in the silence after battle. Let the absence of noise fill you. Let the patience of stone steady you. Let the memory of calm returning remind you that rest is inevitable. The battles are gone. The peace remains. And tonight, within these walls, you are free to claim it as your own. Block 19, between the immense and the intimate. As you continue your slow wandering, you begin to notice something subtle yet profound. Castles live in two worlds at once. On one hand, they are immense. Towering walls, vast halls, ceilings that stretch upward until they vanish in shadow. On the other hand, they are intimate. Alcoves tucked quietly into corners, narrow staircases that curve into secrecy, chambers small enough to hold only one person's breath. To walk through a castle is to move constantly between these two states, the grand and the humble, the vast and the close. And within this movement lies a surprising peace, for it teaches you that rest can be found not in extremes, but in the balance between them. Step once more into the great hall in your imagination. Its ceiling rises like a sky unto itself, beams stretching like ribs of a slumbering giant, echoes expanding into every corner. To stand there is to feel the immensity of human effort, the power of stone, the ambition of centuries, and yet leave that space and turn down a side passage, and suddenly you find yourself in a room no larger than a single embrace, a chapel the size of a closet, a chamber with only one chair, a stairwell so narrow you must touch both walls as you climb. The transition is not jarring, it is soothing. like moving from ocean to stream, from sky to lantern light. Each space cradles you differently, reminding you that both vastness and closeness can offer comfort. There is a calm in immensity. The high towers, when you gaze from their windows, stretch your mind outward, showing you horizons that dissolve your worries in their breadth. The courtyards, wide and open beneath the sky, allow you to breathe fully, to feel your chest expand with space. The vast halls echo your footsteps not to intimidate, but to remind you that you are small in a way that is freeing, that the burdens you carry are not so heavy against the weight of centuries. Immensity offers perspective. It takes what feels overwhelming and shows you how small it truly is. And then, there is a calm in intimacy. The alcove carved into stone where a single candle glows. The bench tucked beneath the window where moonlight falls like a private gift. The guest chamber's canopy bed, curtains drawn tight, creating a world small enough to hold only you. In these spaces, your thoughts no longer stretch outward but fold inward, curling into warmth, finding rest in being contained. Intimacy offers focus. It takes what feels scattered and gathers it gently into stillness. The balance between these two states is what makes castles so soothing to imagine. One moment you are walking beneath arches high enough to swallow echoes. The next you are ducking through a doorway low enough to brush your head. One moment you are gazing across a courtyard open to the stars. The next you are sitting in a niche no larger than a cradle. The castle reminds you that life itself moves this way, between the grand and the small, between days filled with vastness and nights meant only for the closeness of sleep. Listen to the contrast even in sound. In the immense halls, footsteps expand into echoes, filling the air before dissolving. In the intimate chambers, footsteps vanish immediately, absorbed into rugs or softened by wood. One sound stretches, the other contracts, yet both are peaceful in their own way. You begin to realize that peace does not belong only to quiet corners or wide spaces. It belongs to the dance between them, to the way one leads into the other. And so, as you wander through this castle in your imagination, you allow yourself to flow between immensity and intimacy. You stand in the great hall and breathe outward, releasing your weight into the vastness. Then you step into the small chamber and breathe inward, gathering yourself into rest. Outward and inward, vast and close, immense and intimate. The rhythm becomes a lullaby of its own, carrying you deeper into calm. Remain here for a moment longer, balanced between these worlds. Feel the expansiveness of towers above and the nearness of chambers around you. Let them both teach you their lessons, that you are part of something vast and enduring, yet also worthy of small, personal comfort. The castle holds both truths at once, and tonight so can you. Block 20, the final rest within the castle walls. The castle has carried you through towers that touch the stars, through halls where echoes softened into silence, through kitchens fragrant with bread, through courtyards where fountains whispered, through chapels that held the memory of prayer, and through chambers where canopies closed around your breath. Each space has taught you something about calm, that peace can be immense like a sky or intimate like a cradle, steady like stone or fleeting like a candle flame, quiet like a tapestry or gentle like a harp string. And now, as you arrive at the end of this wandering, the castle itself seems to draw you inward, to settle you into its deepest embrace, where all these lessons converge into one truth. That rest is here, that rest is now, that rest belongs to you. Picture yourself walking slowly through the last corridor, your hand brushing against the stone, your steps light, your eyes heavy. A door waits ahead, not grand, not bound with iron, but plain, simple, welcoming. You push it open, and within is a chamber unlike the others. It is not vast like the hall, not perfumed like the garden, not sacred like the chapel. It is empty, save for a bed of simple wood, a fire burning low, and a window open to the night. Yet in this simplicity lies its perfection. This room is not meant to impress. It is meant only to cradle. You step inside, and the air greets you with warmth, with stillness, with the gentle rhythm of flame breathing on the hearth. You lower yourself onto the bed, and as your body sinks into the softness, you feel the weight of the castle gather around you. Not heavy, not pressing, but protective, like arms holding you. The walls stand steady. The towers keep watch. The forest sings faintly beyond. The chapel prays in silence, the halls echo with rest. All of it has converged here, in this single moment, for you. You draw the blanket over yourself, and as you do, centuries of calm settle onto your shoulders. Centuries of patience seep into your breath. Close your eyes now. Imagine the canopy of towers above you, the lull of crickets at the moat, the hush of tapestries, the hum of embers, the sigh of corridors. Each detail folds into the next, until they are no longer separate but one. A lullaby woven of stone and shadow, of wood and water, of silence and time. The castle has become not just a structure in your mind, but a companion in your rest. Its gates are closed gently behind you, its torches dimmed, its halls hushed, as if the entire fortress has laid itself down beside you, whispering only, "Sleep. You are safe. You are home." And before you drift fully into that sleep, I want to leave you with a gentle invitation. If this journey through the castle has brought you comfort, if it has softened the edges of your thoughts and given you a place to rest tonight, please consider showing your support. Like this video to help others find their way here. Leave a comment below, perhaps telling me which part of the castle soothed you most. The music, the gardens, the towers, or maybe the silence after battles long past. Share this video with someone who, like you, longs for peace and sleep. And subscribe to the channel so that together we can continue walking into worlds of stillness, worlds of calm, worlds where imagination itself becomes a lantern leading us into rest. Your presence here makes this possible. Your support keeps this castle of stories standing. Now let the fire fade. Let the night deepen. Let the castle keep its watch. Your eyes are heavy. Your breath is steady. And nothing more is required of you. The stones are patient. The walls protective. The towers eternal. Sleep now, within the quietest chamber of the castle, and know that you are safe, that you are cradled, that you are at peace.